Greetings fellow tank commanders. In this video I'm going to be showing you a game that I played in the Waffenträger auf E100. This is a tier 10 German auto-loading tank destroyer. The game I'm playing is a standard battle on Ghost Town with 10 tier 10s and 1 artillery on each team. For this game I am platooned up with Noble 838 who is in an FV215B 183, which I'm just going to call the Death Star, and Insanely Crazy 14 who is in an E100. This is really quite an interesting platoon combination to have, because the E100 can lead the way and soak up a lot of fire. The Death Star has that crazy output per shot, and my Waffenträger auf E100 has a huge damage output in its 6-shot autoloader clip. Our plan is to group together in the city and use our massive amount of firepower to take out the enemies one by one, with the E100 blocking our tank destroyers while we reload. Since tank destroyers like this are so vulnerable during their long reloads, it's really nice having this extra security, especially when we're going to be fighting in close quarters. Whenever you're using a tank like this in close proximity to the enemy, it's always good to find a heavily armored teammate and just stick with them. They make a great combination together because one soaks up the fire and the other one increases the damage output. I really wasn't expecting here for this FV215B to be so overextended so early in the game, but I am not going to complain because it's the perfect opportunity to unload my clip. Wow, just look how easily this tier 10 heavy tank gets destroyed by this awesome autoloader. I do not feel sorry for him though, because he was way overextended for this early in the game and he had no support from any teammates. In a game with so many tier 10s, you cannot make a move like that and not expect to be punished. And wow, he certainly did pay for that move. Now I've rolled back to hide during my 56-second reload. This may seem like a long time, but the damage output with this tank is just insane. With your average damage per shot being 560, you deal an average of 3,360 damage per clip. That's of course assuming that all your shots are successful. That's some very high damage potential over a very short period of time. Now I did take a damage hit from that engagement with the FV215B. It was definitely worth the trade, but I don't like giving out such easy damage early in the game. My concern more being for the fact that he could have damaged my gun, and then I would have had to use my repair kit right off the start of the battle. And since this tank is so prone to gun damage, I always want to hold on to that repair kit for as long as possible. Fortunately, his shot just took away hit points and my tank is still in great condition. I made sure I was fully reloaded before we move forward. Now we can move up and start clearing the city out. I'm sticking right beside the E100 and using him as my personal bodyguard. Something you never want to have to do with this tank is trade shots, because it is an absolute waste of your tank's potential, but that is exactly what happens here against this T10. I ended up only getting 1 critical hit and 1 damage hit on the T10. My platoon mate and I bumped into each other, which may have costed us the chance to finish him off, because given the extra second to aim, I would have tried to track him out in the open. But the blame is on me because I'm supposed to be working around the E100. I'm using the E100 as a shield. This works out well because the T10 ends up bouncing off of him instead of shooting at my turret, which would be a guaranteed penetration. That was definitely not effective use of the Waffenträger auf E100's clip, but at least I get to finish it off on a good note by destroying that flanking Skoda. Since there are so many tier 10s in the game, my platoon mates and I are staying very close together. Coordination amongst platoon mates and teammates is very important in games like this, because there are just so many tier 10s waiting to come out and punish you. So any assault move that you make or position that you try to hold down, you need to make sure that your team is either supporting you or knows the situation that you're in, so that whatever strategy you use has a great impact on the game. My Death Star platoon mate has a great opportunity here to shoot a Waffenträger auf E100, and he had a Hesh round loaded, but unfortunately his shot did just under 800 damage. That is a real shame because there isn't an easier tank in the game for a Hesh round to get a full penetration, which deals an average of 1,750. Fortunately, we had some good support from our teammates, and the concentrated firepower was too much and he didn't escape to get another reload. I have been running exclusively APCR shells this game. This is because in close quarters fighting like this, the Waffenträger auf E100 is likely to take damage during its clip, so I wanted to make sure I had the most reliability possible to deal back damage. Especially with so many tier 10s in the game, I didn't want to get in an unlucky situation where I bounced an entire clip. We're continuing our gradual push through the city, but now we come across a camping T11 OE3. That T-11OE3 really wasn't helping his team out. He ended up getting no damage in the game, and this really isn't a bad map to use that tank on, so his team really could have benefited from his help in the city. With 1 Hesh round from the Death Star and 3 penetrations of my own, we were able to take out a full health tier 10 tank destroyer in just a few seconds while he was in a really tough position to penetrate. The combination of firepower coming from these 2 tank destroyers is just absolutely frightening. I was hoping for a little bit of luck here to get the enemy artillery, but sadly both shots miss and now I'm back on the reload. But it is of little consequence because my Death Star platoon mate gets a good vantage point and manages to destroy him before he can escape. The game is close and my platoon has already taken a lot of damage, so we've got to be careful about proceeding. Now we're going to go catch up with our E100 platoon mate who is holding the enemy in place for us while we reload. This tank is well known for its sniping capabilities, but you should never underestimate this tank's potential on a close quarters map like this, because if you've got a few teammates covering your reload and the enemy doesn't focus fire on you, then that awesome damage potential which you have can be just as useful in close quarters as it can be from afar. So when you're driving one of these tank destroyers, don't be afraid to get up close and personal, and look for easy situations where you're not going to take much damage while unloading your clip. Since I had the most hit points remaining in our platoon, I decided to go out and take the shot from this tier 9 heavy tank. I definitely could have positioned my frontal hull armor a little better, but really I'm fine with it as long as he didn't damage my gun, because I still have enough hit points to take 2 small caliber shots. I definitely get a little too excited here and rush into an enemy trap. The E75 gets an easy damage hit on me, and the T-11OE3 almost finishes me off. But that was incredibly lucky. His shot bounced off the top of my hull. That was a perfect example of overextending on my part, and only extreme luck saves me there. I was very surprised that my snapshot managed to find a weak spot on the T-11OE3, but even if it hadn't, I still have 4 shots in my clip that I could have used to finish him. Since I definitely can't take another hit, I'm waiting for my Death Star platoon mate to flank around the E75 and draw his attention before I break cover. This is a classic example of good teamwork. Both of us are extremely weak on hit points, but with just a very simple tactic, we are able to take out an almost full health E75. Being able to keep 2 apocalyptic tank destroyers alive at this stage in the game is extremely important. Alright, so now we're back on the reload, which is a vulnerable time for any tank, but since I'm having to wait almost a full minute before I can shoot again, I have to rely a lot on my teammates to keep me safe, and so I try to remember every time that I'm on the reload to signal it to my teammates, because I've noticed it makes a huge difference in how much they rally around you. Many times I'll get responses from teammates like affirmative and ready to fire. Knowing that your teammates are directly supporting you while you reload is very important for the survival of this tank. So when you're driving the Waffentrager off E100, make sure to always signal your reload, and don't be obnoxious about it, but it doesn't hurt to give your teammates some updates on the reload as well when it's at 30 or 15 seconds. And as a teammate fighting alongside one of these tanks, make sure to say affirmative or ready to fire so that they know that you're covering them. That type of coordination can make a huge difference in the game, especially in the late game when there aren't as many teammates around to cover you. This is a hilarious shot that I get on the bat chat. Just as my reload finishes, he streaks in front of us, and that's very fortunate that the shot worked out so well, but it's not enough to destroy him. The rest of the game isn't overly exciting. We have to spend 2 minutes running around the map chasing this bat chat, and since none of my remaining teammates have a lot of hit points, we have to stay together in a close pack, which makes hunting him down even more difficult. We did consider going for a base capture, but there's potential that the bat chat could have just outspotted us and sniped us one at a time. So we continued with this strategy, and it ends up paying off, because the bat chat heads back in the city, probably trying to make a move on us, and my Death Star platoon mate runs right into him and gets an easy snapshot to finish the game. Now let's check the post-game stats and see how I did. For this game, I lost 16,000 silver. That's not really a surprise considering how many APCR shells I used, but I don't really care because I definitely didn't get this tank for silver earning potential. I got it for its challenging game style and awesome damage output. I managed to earn 4,896 experience with a 2x daily multiplier. In this game I dealt 8,411 damage, assisted with 532 damage, and destroyed 5 enemies while blocking 850 damage. This earned me High Caliber, Mastery Badge Ace Tanker, and Spartan for blocking that shot from the T-11 OE3, which was pretty lucky. I placed at the top of my team, earning a base XP of 1,632. This of course is not the maximum potential for the Waffentrager off E100, but when you start getting into a lot more damage than that in a tier 10 game, you have to have a lot of teammates that aren't pulling their weight. But as you can see, most of my teammates here got a good amount of damage, and my platoon made a great contribution to the game, dealing just over 12,800 damage, and together we destroyed a total of 9 enemies. The excellent coordination we had amongst our platoon this game allowed me to use my tank in an ideal way for close quarters fighting. I managed to hit 20 of my 24 shots and penetrate 17 of those. That's some fairly good reliability. There are a few shots which didn't go my way, but that's just part of the game. I only fired 24 of the 60 shells which this tank carries, so you can imagine in a longer game with a few more long distance fighting situations how much damage this tank can actually do in a game. For such a great game and an apocalyptic tank destroyer, I was rather disappointed with the crew and module damage I did. I damaged the fuel tank and injured the driver in the FV215B, and unfortunately besides that I only did damage to tracks. Well, that's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed seeing the game with the Waffentrager off E100, and that'll give you some ideas on how to play this tank in close quarters, as well as how to fight alongside one of these awesome tank destroyers. Stay tuned for more awesome World of Tanks videos.